It's really a mental game, right? Like going in and being like, let me smash out squats, even though I've been doing squats for the last freaking year. It doesn't matter. You're still going to progress and you're still going to build muscle. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, Chen Yang here, and I hope you guys are doing well. If you're new here, welcome. I'm an online female fitness coach, and if you are not new here, thank you so much for sticking around. So in today's video, I wanted to go over the topic of body recomp. What does it mean? What is it? Who is better doing a body recomp? Who perhaps should go through more of a bulking and cutting cycle and all of that. So before we dive in, if this is a topic that you have been interested in, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you're new here, because it really does help the channel out and it really does support me, and I am really grateful. And without further ado, what is body recomp? Like, what does it mean? Essentially, it's short for body recomposition, right? That essentially means reducing your body fat percentage and increasing your muscle mass, okay? So essentially changing the composition of your body. Now, typically a body recomp wouldn't be suggested for someone who is quite an advanced lifter, because muscle in itself is already really hard to build, okay? Especially as a female. So when you're trying to body recomp and you're trying to reduce your body fat whilst increasing your muscle mass, it's very hard to do both simultaneously at the same time if you are an experienced lifter and have been training for a while, because it does take to be in a bit of a surplus to really help your body be in the best position possible to be building on muscle and to be training effectively. Now, that's not to say that you can't put on muscle whilst in deficit. You for sure can, but it just makes it slightly harder, and that is why with the body recomp, where you are trying to reduce your body fat whilst also building on muscle, there are more kind of specific categories of people who are going to benefit a bit more from it, and others who will probably benefit from a more clear-cut building and cutting phase. So essentially there are 4 categories of people who would really benefit from a body recomp, or who can do it quite well. And obviously number 1 are those who are really new to lifting. Now, this is probably actually going to be a lot of you, even if you're like, oh, but I've been at the gym for a prolonged period of time now and you know, I know what I'm doing. Unless you've actually had maybe like proper training in terms of someone actually going through your form for you, making sure you know actually how to train hard, because I think a lot of us are like, yeah, I train hard, and then, you know, you actually get someone to watch over, or you get a coach and you're like, oh crap, I actually usually have like 3 to 4 more reps in me, but I get to a point where my muscles are burning a little bit, or I'm in a bit of pain and I stop, okay? That is not you training hard, okay? Training hard is when you actually start feeling that lactic acid build up and you feel your muscles burning, you're like, I can do a few more reps, let me try it, push out a few more reps, okay? So for many of you, I would say you're probably in the category of beginner lifters, so a body recomp could be pretty feasible for you and pretty effective for initial, you know, phase of time. Number 2 is if you have been detrained. So again, you're kind of starting from that beginner position again. You've trained before quite hard, but it's been a while since, you know, you've really had a progressive overload plan where you've been following and you've been really kind of nailing your training. So you're detrained, your muscles obviously haven't had the same stimulus in a while, so when you initially go right back into it, it's almost like you're starting from a point where your muscles are, you know, a beginner, and you're giving them that stimulus again. So that essentially enables you to have a better response to the stimuli of the weights that you're lifting, and essentially that's going to help you in terms of a body recomp. So that's when you could probably utilize a body recomp quite well. The 3rd category of people are the people who just generally have a lot of body fat to lose. That way, again, you can probably go through a body recomp quite easily, where a lot of it that you're losing is going to be body fat, and then essentially when you go into resistance training again, that's going to stimulate the muscle growth there. And then the final category of people that we don't really talk about here, because it's not going to be probably relevant for most of us, are people on like PEDs or steroids, which essentially is going to really enhance your body's ability to pack on muscle, so that you could be in a somewhat slight calorie deficit to be burning on body fat whilst also building on muscle, but again, not really relevant for most of us who are natural. So yeah, not relevant for a lifestyle perspective either, so we won't really touch on that. So today I'm mainly just going to touch on, you know, if you are new to lifting or have quite a lot of body fat to lose, which I think is again going to be be the majority of us. Either you are someone who is maybe skinny fat, who is already quite small and you just don't have much muscle on you, and you are new to lifting and you just want to put on some more muscle and just tone up a little bit. Or you're the other category of people who have a bit more body fat to lose, but again, you still like to tone up a bit on some muscle, build on some strength. I've realized that there are kind of just those two categories of people, at least for the clients who I kind of intake. It's usually one of those two categories, which is quite interesting. So now that we have sort of the categories out there, if you do resonate with one of those, these are your general guidelines of how you could essentially go into a body recomp and how we would run them. So number one is your diet, okay? So nutrition is so important. Regardless of your goals, nutrition really does make or break kind of the physique components. Like, you could be lifting as much as you like and progressing super well at the gym, but if you are not on top of your nutrition, you're going to find it hard to actually see the physical results. You're going to feel the results, right? You're going to get stronger, you're going to get fitter, and that's freaking awesome, and that is a big component of why we should all be exercising and moving our bodies. But obviously we all want to look good as well, and if you do have specific physical goals, that is where your nutrition is going to come in play. Now, for most of you, just being at a maintenance or a slight deficit should be enough to be putting you in a position where you are going to be putting on muscle through your training, through your progressive overload, and then also burning off body fat. So a slight deficit, or perhaps starting at maintenance, seeing where your maintenance is at, and then dropping it off a little bit, or just increasing your energy expenditure slightly. Now, the big emphasis here with nutrition is, one, obviously your total calories, but two, your protein intake, okay? So the amount of you who probably are not having enough protein, and I'm not to say, like, I'm not trying to like diss you, but like the amount of you who think you're having sufficient protein, then you actually go measure and you're like, oh my god, like I barely have anything. Or you're having peanut butter for breakfast and you're like, that's my protein source. Very important that you are hitting your proteins, okay? And there's a reason why everyone talks about protein. It's because it is important, okay? And you want to aim for at least 1 gram per pound of body weight there as a starting point. So weigh yourself, see how much you weigh, convert that to 1 gram, and that's how many essentially grams of protein you want to take as a minimum. Obviously, if you've been someone who's been eating way under, I wouldn't give yourself that stress of being like, oh, I suddenly have to hit that amount right away. It's going to take time for you to also kind of maybe adjust your diet, to learn about protein sources, to know how to incorporate more without feeling like you're just sitting there eating chicken breast 24/7, right? Realistically, for most of you, you'd probably be looking at around the 130, 140 range mark, at least for people around my similar weight. At least for our clients, I would say, like, most of them are similar weight ranges, and you'd be looking around 130, 140. Some are a bit lower, so it really is looking at where you're starting from, and then where is that kind of ideal range that you want to be going for, so that 1 gram per pound of body weight, and then being like, well, if there's a massive difference right now, it's probably not realistic for you to now suddenly expect yourself to be meeting that intake ASAP, but slowly push it up. So that's also, again, what we do with a lot of our clients. Like, if we've realized that their intake is very low, it's going to be very overwhelming to be like, yo, your intake's way too low, hit this, and it's like 3 times the amount they usually would be used to, right? So we set it a bit lower, because any improvement or any increase is going to be better than where they were before, and then we slowly build up over time to get them to that kind of intake that's kind of the, you know, the sweet zone, I would call it. So that is the nutrition part of things. 1, calories, being in a slight deficit, and then making sure you are hitting your protein intake, please, ladies. Now, number 2 would be obviously your strength training. So it is so important that you are prioritizing strength training, okay? So many of you are cardio bunnies, nothing wrong with that. It's great for your cardiovascular health, it's great for you, but if you are wanting to put on muscle, you are going to have to prioritize that resistance training, and this is not high reps, low weight, you know, hit exercises with a bit of resistance. No, I'm meaning like lift heavy, okay? 8 to 10 rep range, 12 to 15 rep range, different sort of drop sets or different sort of pyramid ranges, but really making sure that you're lifting heavy. It's not about the, I guess, like how much you're sweating or like your heart rate from the exercise, because realistically, when you are just lifting heavy and you're just lifting weights, you're not going to be sweating as much or feeling as exhausted as, say, like a HIIT workout or a run. It doesn't mean it's less effective, okay? If you want to build muscle, it really comes down to progressive overload, lifting heavier or a bit more than before, putting your muscle under a bit more strain than the last time. Now, don't freak out if you're like, oh my gosh, but I've been lifting the same weight for so long on my lateral raises or specific movements. There are going to be some movements where you are going to hit that maximum that you can probably do, and then it's about looking at, well, is your maybe engagement better? Is your mind and muscle connection better? Maybe are you able to add in maybe 1 more rep or 2 more reps, or maybe are you able to actually slow down your reps and change the tempo and just really make sure that every rep you're doing now is actually fully controlled and you're not maybe using other muscle groups, right? So really understanding that there are so many ways to measure progressive overload. It's not just the weight you're lifting. Of course, we want to be increasing that over time to the maximum that we can do, but understand that you are probably going to hit a point where that kind of weight progress slows down a little bit, and that's when you're going to have to focus on other things. But as long as you are showing up and giving your best and pushing yourself to that next level and just trying to be that 1% better in any sort of way, that is going to be enabling you to be building on that muscle, which is really important if you are trying to body recomp and trying to build on muscle when you are in a slight deficit as well there. Now, another thing that's important is actually having a progressive plan, okay? So a lot of you I've spoken to has said like, oh, I just find different things on YouTube or Instagram and I follow those, or I do like these challenges. Great way to move your body. I'm not gonna deny that, right? And I think, again, any exercise is better than none, but if you are wanting more than just, results from how you're feeling or strength-wise and performance, and you really want even performance-based, but if you are wanting those physical results, you really do need a plan that is progressive but also somewhat repetitive, okay? And when I say repetitive, a lot of people are like, oh, that's so boring. It does become mundane, okay? It is about those staple movements in and out. Like if you look at my training or anyone else's, like, it's usually the staple same movement patterns. It's like the same thing over and over again, right? And the only reason why you may see real interesting stuff being thrown around on YouTube or Instagram is because content creators, like fitness influencers, like they need to push out different content, I guess, or else you'd get bored. Like if you were to see how someone really trains for most of the time, it would be the same shit every day. For me, it's like, okay, just get my squats done, get my leg press, like the compound movements. Maybe I'll swap the leg press for the squat one day, or I'll swap that for a hack squat, but it's going to be the same shit over and over again. But maybe for a period of time, I'm hitting 8 to 10 reps, and then another period of time, I'm doing 12 to 15 reps. And the thing that changes is maybe the rep ranges, or maybe the order of the exercises, or if I like superset things, or the weight that I'm using, which is going to be the biggest thing, right? That is what's changing up my workout, going in and being like, how can I lift a bit more? That has changed, but the exercises usually stay the same. So if you are someone out there who's like, oh my gosh, I've been bouncing from like workout to workout, program to program, because I just get bored and I think I need to shock my muscles, or I have to change the exercise every few weeks to actually reap the results, that's not true. It may be beneficial to maybe swap some exercises here or there if you're not really feeling a good engagement, or if you're just getting so mentally bored that you can't push yourself because you're like, I freaking hate this exercise now. Then yeah, like find something else that's going to target the same muscle groups. But please don't think that because you've changed the exercise, you're actually going to benefit more. You may benefit more because you're mentally a bit more excited about the workout, and that naturally may allow you to push more. But it's not the workout or the exercise itself that's changed that's causing that effect, but rather just how you're doing mentally. So it's really a mental game, right? Like going in and being like, let me smash out squats, even though I've been doing squats for the last freaking year. It doesn't matter. You're still going to progress, and you're still going to build muscle through that progressive overload in that same program that you're going to rinse in and out, okay? So it's important. It's probably not something you want to have, but it's important that you do understand that with your training. Now, another thing with training is, please don't think it's quantity over quality. Something, again, I think a lot of beginners will think it's like, oh, I've trained 6 times a week, or whatever, I have to train as much time as possible, spend X amount of time at the gym. But if I have a busy work schedule, I can never achieve my goals because I can't train 5 times a week. I could only do 2 or 3. That's okay. It's about what you can stay consistent to, and in fact, it's quality over quantity. It's something I tell my clients, like there is no right amount of days to be hitting the gym. What works for you? What allows you to recover properly as well? That's going to be different from person to person. Some people can do 5 days a week and they feel fresh. They feel good to hit another session. Some people can do 4, some people can do 3. I used to do 5, and I found that, with the demands of my work and everything, 5 was a bit of a push. And realistically, I think I would actually be able to maximize my potential if maybe I did 4. I love going to the gym. I'd love to do 5, but realistically, I was also feeling that my body just wasn't recovering as quickly. And so I put it down to 4, and it's great because it really gets me excited to actually go to the gym, because I'm like, oh my god, I only get 4 sessions. It enables me to recover before my next session, okay? So important that you recognize it's the quality of your workouts, not the quantity. And it's about pushing yourself as much as you can in each workout. And that's going to be dictated by how well have you rested, right? How well have you recovered? So please understand it's not more equals better, but better quality over quantity here. Now, if we're looking at cardio as well, because obviously that's something that's part of your exercise, there is nothing wrong with cardio. However, if you are overdoing it on cardio, you're really going to minimize your muscle building potential just because you're not going to be recovering. Like imagine you've just done a heavy day of legs and the next day you're going out for a marathon or a long as run or sprint. Your legs need time to recover. Cardio is going to impact that, right? It's not to say don't do cardio, but please prioritize that strength training. If you are doing cardio, don't do it before your resistance training because you're going to be tired. Imagine like you've just done a run and now you're trying to go do a squat. You're probably not going to be able to squat as much, as heavy, or as for many reps after that run because your body is tired. So utilize cardio as a way to improve your cardiovascular health, to make you feel good if it's something you really enjoy, or to bring you into a slight calorie deficit to burn body fat. But otherwise, please don't go crazy with it, thinking that you have to do shitloads of cardio to get toned or to body recon. That is not the case. In fact, I think that's the one thing, or one of the biggest thing that's actually holding you back from your goals, is that you're doing way too much cardio. You know, you think it's the right thing, but you're doing so much of it that it's holding you back from building that body you want, okay? So that's probably the biggest thing that I see a lot of people talking about, a lot of ladies when they come to me on our initial calls. They've just done so many different like HIIT workouts, cardio-based workouts, which is great for the stamina, great for endurance, you know, but that's also the thing that's holding them back from actually being able to build on muscle, to tone up, to see those physical results come out. Okay, so now that we've gone over the kind of program, like the exercise-based part of things and the diet part of things in terms of a body recomp, what I think is most beneficial and kind of the opposite of trying to do both at the same time is actually just going through bulking and cutting phases. So if you are not someone who has a lot of body fat to lose, and you're someone who's probably trained a bit for a while now, or you just want to really maximize your results with a proper muscle building phase, then I would just do a building phase and then a cutting phase, because it's going to make things a lot more efficient. A body recomp can take a lot longer because again, you're trying to do both things at the same time, right? It's that kind of in between where your body is not exactly in the best position possible to be just building a muscle. It's also not in the best position possible to be really dropping body fat because you're just in a slight deficit. So yes, you're going to get results, but again, because you're not really at one end of the spectrum or the other, it's going to be quite slow. And for some people it works, like some people enjoy that. But if say you do have quite a lot of body fat to lose, then it would be, let's go straight into just a proper dieting phase. It doesn't mean that you're going to change your workouts or that you're not going to lift, but the main focus is going to be getting you into a bigger calorie deficit that's obviously still sustainable, but more than you could have at a body recomp phase, really getting you into that deficit so that you're dropping, you know, maybe around a pound per week there, until you get to a point where, you know, you actually have a better body composition in terms of lower body fat, where we can actually look at, okay, maybe a body recomp phase now, or going to a building phase there. Now, the other group obviously is if you don't have much body fat to lose already, and you'd really like to effectively put on muscle in a period of time, or perhaps you already find it hard to put on muscle. You know, you're already someone who naturally does not put on muscle that easily. Trying to do a body recomp may not be the most effective or efficient because your body already needs a bigger stimulus or perhaps more food, right? So that's when you would want to just dedicate time to a building phase. Okay, and really just make sure you're eating in that slight surplus. You're really training hard and you're optimizing your body to recover by having enough food and not being in that slight deficit, okay, and maybe not doing as much cardio and as many steps, okay? So really just having it in your head like this is actually a building phase. The main goal right now is to put on muscle, obviously whilst minimizing any unnecessary body fat, because that's just going to make things a bit harder when you're in that cutting phase, right, if you have extra body fat to lose. But understanding that this is my building phase and my main goal right now is just to put on as much muscle as possible. Ladies, like, it is very hard and slow to put on muscle, so when you're in this phase, you're going to feel yourself get fluffier and you're going to feel yourself get bigger, it's not because you're suddenly jacked and you've got so much muscle. It's just because you've got a bit of muscle now and you've also got a bit of body fat together, which is going to make you feel a bit bigger. When you lose that body fat, you're going to realize actually probably how little muscle you do have. Obviously you've gained some, but you're going to realize, oh crap, I actually need to do another building phase and I want to do another building phase, right? So it's important that you do recognize that. And you know, I've been there myself before. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting way too hinge, like I am massive. But ultimately it's because one, obviously I'm used to seeing myself maybe leaner from a cutting phase, and when I've transitioned into a bulky phase, yeah, it's a bit of a change, right? And you're like, oh, I'm getting a bit big. I put on too much muscle, but realistically you have not. And when you go back into that dieting phase, it's going to remind you like, oh, okay, actually, like, I'm really glad that I stuck this out because I gave my body the chance and the opportunity to really build upon a muscle and to also even mentally challenge my own thoughts around body fat and maybe how I perceive my body and how I speak to myself in different phases of my body, right? Because if you find it challenging to give yourself the same love when you have a little bit more body fat, that's something you don't want to just run away from, right? The only way to actually face it and to overcome it is to challenge it, to challenge those thoughts and be like, why is it that I am putting myself down now just because I'm a little bit fluffier? Because I know that my values should not be based on how much body fat I have, right? And currently I'm in a building phase and I have different goals right now. It does not mean that I am less attractive. For frick's sake, you're way stronger probably, you know? Embrace it, embrace being a bit fluffier and a bit chunkier, because you know that your body is able to be adapted. You can change your body, okay? And when you come into a dieting phase or a cutting phase, the body fat will come off, okay? So like, don't stress about it, but also just make sure that when you're in a building phase that you're not saying fuck it as well. I mean, you can, but ultimately I think most of us want to still stay in relatively good shape, right? Whilst we're in a building phase, get a little bit fluffy, but obviously not so much where we are, you know, hitting a dieting phase being like, oh my God, I have so much body fat to lose now, or just feeling really shit about ourselves. I think it's, again, that fine line that's quite important. It's like the happy medium, right? Like maybe your happy place, like your happiest place is here with your body comp, but in a building phase, maybe it's like slightly here where you're like, I'm not in the happiest place, but I'm not super uncomfortable. There are days where I will have maybe poorer body image, but that's okay because I know what the big goal here, and I'm still in a relatively comfy zone, right? And then there's obviously the zone where like, okay, now I can move towards the zone and maybe do a little dieting phase when the time comes, and I'm going to feel even better about myself. But it's understanding that, try to stay within that, and yeah, it is normal to be a little bit uncomfortable and you have to embrace it, but there's also no reason to say fuck it and then go all the way down there where you're actually just giving yourself an excuse to say F my diet, right? Or F my nutrition intake, and I'm going to eat way more in a surplus and eat junk because I'm in a building phase. So that was a ramble, but I hope you kind of understand that different sort of mindset, right? That just because you're in a building phase doesn't mean you say fuck it, but it also doesn't mean that, you know, you shy away from just getting slightly uncomfortable and eating a bit more for a prolonged period of time. So I hope that this makes sense. So just to wrap things up, like if you are someone who is new to lifting or detrained and you don't mind spending a bit more time in this body recomp phase and you enjoy just being, perhaps like not being in a cut or a bulk, then do a body recomp. It's going to take longer probably, but if that's what you prefer, go for it, because your body still can benefit quite a bit from it. But if you have trained for a while, or perhaps your body is a body that just does not put on muscle that well and that quickly, and you're always quite like small and, you know, just slim, quite petite. For many of us, I feel like, especially us Asians, we don't put on muscle as quickly. I don't know, it depends, but what I found works best is just having those slight building phases, those cutting phases, especially when you have been on your fitness journey for a while. It's also nice because I think just the mental challenge of pushing yourself into that slightly uncomfortable zone is always quite nice, and being able to have those kind of seasons in your life where you're building or you're cutting. But if you're someone who can put on muscle quite easily and, you know, you're new again, body recomp is the way to go. But then ultimately you probably will want to be looking at a cutting and bulking phase regardless. So I hope that this was helpful. If you guys have any questions, any further questions, feel free to pop them in the comments below. If you are looking for someone to help you on your fitness journey beyond just the physical, okay? So getting you to obviously your most confident self physically, but also that inner work of making sure that, you know, your mind is in line with your body, right? You're looking good, but you're also feeling good. You've cultivated lifelong skills, different ways of thinking that's really going to benefit your well-being, your mental and physical well-being. Then we would absolutely love to help you. We have a few more spots for this August and next month, and all it takes is just a DM on our Instagram. Mine's cc.fit. Would absolutely love to chat with you about your goals, where you are right now, where you want to be, see if we're a good fit. We don't take on everyone just because we have limited spaces, and we just want to make sure that when we work with someone, it's someone who's really aligned with our community community as well. It's such a precious community. Everyone's so open and so honest and transparent. Everyone's really there to just work on every aspect of themselves, and obviously we want to protect that, so we do make sure we filter through inquiries, but would love to speak with you, see what your goals are, if we can align our visions together, and if so, get you started on your journey as well. Other than that, I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your night or day wherever you are in the world. If you haven't connected with me on Instagram, that's cz.fit, would absolutely love to see you there, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!